Joining us live now from Queensland Nationals leader David Littleproud. David, good to see you this morning. So a few issues to talk about. Let's start here. Do you support the teachers in their strike today?
Yeah, look, they've got every right, and I think what you've got to understand, it's not necessarily just about pay. I think it's about the conditions also that many teachers in the public system are enduring, and that's about the behaviour of children. And I don't necessarily think that that's always the state's responsibility. That starts with us as parents at home to instil respect into the institutions, starting with our teachers and moving through to our police and our judiciary. And I think it's important we as a society lift our game in terms of that respect and what our teachers are enduring. So I understand that the state government has continued to negotiate, particularly around pay, but it's about that management of behaviour in classrooms, the size of those classrooms. There's a shortage of teachers. In fact, we're seeing even in regional areas such a shortage that we're seeing second and third year university students being asked and thrust into the classroom before their studies are finished. And that's because it's not an attractive workplace because of this behavioural issue that we as a society and governments need to lean into. But we can't abrogate all our responsibility as parents. We actually need to step up and to make sure that we make that workplace a lot easier for teachers, and we can all play a role in that.
Yeah, I mean, that's Anastasia Palaszczuk was on the program last hour as well, and she was reminding our audience about that too, not just about pay, also about conditions, violence in schools, you point out there, particularly in regional areas. So how much would extra pay help in that regard, or is there more intervention that's required just on that point of violence in schools? Police, possibly?
Yeah, and I think this is the thing, is pay will only take it so far. And when you see what's happening in regional areas, I'm not saying that we've got bigger behavioural issues, it's just that we can't fill the places right across the state, and we're invariably the last one on the list to fill the teachers, and that's why we've got shortages. In fact, I've got teachers in my electorate that escaped Brisbane that have gone to small schools, only teaching 7 or 8 schools in the kids in the outback, because it's a better environment because they love teaching. And so the extrinsic value around pay goes so far. It's about the intrinsic value of their work in being able to guide and shape children's lives for the better. And this is where I think we need to lean into having tougher conversations with parents around expectations of behaviour when they enter that classroom, and how respect needs to be instilled in it. My father was a teacher, a primary school teacher. He came from a vastly different era, obviously, but there were penalties and consequences and deterrents for doing the wrong thing, and I don't think there is at the moment, and I think that needs to be instilled not just in the classroom, but supported at home in respecting that institution. Otherwise, who would want to go in there and be abused by children from primary right through to secondary?
That's true. David, federally this morning, the Prime Minister has held a discussion with the French President Emmanuel Macron overnight. France is, as we know, leading the charge to declare a state of Palestine at the UN next month, above 140 odd other nations who've already done so. Does this suggest to you that it's highly likely that we will follow France at the UN General Assembly next month in making this call?
Well, I think it's pretty obvious the Prime Minister's crawling to this any way he possibly can. We all want the conflict in Gaza and Israel to cease. But let's get back to first principles. There are still 50 hostages, Israeli citizens, that the Israeli government has a responsibility to return to their families. If this happened in Australia, you would expect the Australian government to return hostages to their families here in this country. And unfortunately, it is the innocent, both Palestinian and Israeli, that are caught up in this, because you are dealing with a terrorist organisation that would use not only innocent Israeli people as human shields, they're using the Palestinian people as human shields, not just in their conduct of this warfare, but also in terms of the aid that's coming through. We need to see that the aid comes through and Israel tries to facilitate that, but we also need to make sure we understand that until Hamas is removed, we are dealing with a country that wants statehood that would be run by terrorists. Now, where does that leave the security of the Israeli people who had an act of terrorism perpetrated on them, unprovoked, And that is where I think I understand and appreciate the anger here in Australia about wanting this conflict to end. But let's be careful about pushing the moral, dictating moral compass across just the Israeli people. It is the Hamas terrorist organisation that is much of the problem in terms of this conflict. And we need to see a way through that with Hamas being eliminated, handing over their weapons and handing over those hostages as a first principle.
And that's a long way off. David, good to see you this morning, live from Geelong in Victoria. We'll talk to you soon.